Hello. Welcome back to the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. This is episode 14. I am Julian. I am your host, your humble narrator, cult master extraordinaire. And the mood tonight is quite calmer and a lot quieter. And the reason for that is well, it's late. It's way past midnight tonight on this Friday night. I didn't intend to record this late, but a lot of things came up this week that were not anticipated, but I did not want to go another week without I don't want to go a week without recording another episode again. I did that already this month, and that's absolutely not a habit that I want to get into. That's not something that any podcaster should get comfortable doing, is just, just ditching an episode a week. And I came extremely close to doing that this week, but I decided no. We're not going to do that, Julian. We're not going to get comfortable just abandoning this week's episode or next week's episode or anything like that. This is a goddamn podcast, and we're recording one episode per week. Otherwise, I may as well just go back and take another 2-year hiatus, which which I'm just now recovering from and just now getting back into the swing of things from. So we're not going to go back to that. We are going to keep moving right along here. And, I'm not hating recording at midnight. In fact, it's actually quite nice. I'm looking out my window right now and it's pitch black. It is a horror podcast. So, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of back in the 90s, there would be this, like those public access channels would have those guys dressed in those cheap costumes presenting the horror movie of the week. They'd be like, "Hello, boys and girls. This week we'll be showing The Invisible Man." It's got that kind of vibe to it, and I kind of like that. In fact, I'm wondering why I don't record at midnight every week. I mean, it's on brand. I feel really good. I mean, I'm in a great mood. I've always been a nocturnal person. I'm always in the best moods at night. So I think as I speak right now, I think I've decided a new recording time. However, it's not going to be Friday night. That's for sure. No. In fact, speaking of, that's actually something I do need to fix. I think the last 3 podcasts have been put out quite randomly between Wednesdays and Thursdays. I'm once again going to start aiming for Wednesday. In fact, I'm just going to call it right now. A new episode of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast will go live every single Wednesday night at midnight. Right at midnight. That is my new episode slot that I just came up with just now, and that is the new time that I want to be held accountable to. So, moving forward, that is the plan. That is when I plan to have a new episode uploaded every single week. And I hope if I do miss that time slot, that each and every one of you will hold me accountable, call me a lazy little bitch, and roast me. We shall see. Now, let's get on to this show. The DualShock Graveyard Podcast is a gaming podcast with a horror twist. I say that every single week because, well, it is. We talk about the latest in gaming. We talk about the latest in horror, from horror movies, which there is plenty on this week's episode, horror games, the paranormal, everything spooky, everything weird. But before I can even begin the episode, I do have to provide a little update regarding last week's episode. Now, last week I had to open the episode. I had to channel my inner news anchor because there was a bit of a breaking news story that was happening as I was recording, and thankfully that came to a very peaceful conclusion. Now, for those of you that did not listen to last week's episode, it was being reported that there was a heavy police presence at the Ubisoft Montreal offices, which is a gaming studio. Of course, the studio behind the Assassin's Creed games, Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six Siege, the upcoming Immortals Phoenix Rising. Very popular developer. Now, what was being reported, and again, I was being very careful because I did not want to report anything that wasn't confirmed, but what was being thrown around, in hindsight being thrown around very irresponsibly, was that there was a alleged hostage situation happening at the Ubisoft Montreal offices. At the time I was recording last week, That was all the information we had, was that there was an insane police presence there, and that is what was being reported. Thankfully, 1 week later, we now know that that was not the case, and it was actually a case of swatting. For those that don't know what swatting is, it's when somebody prank calls through an untraceable line. Somebody prank calls 911 and says that there's anything ranging from a hostage situation, basically anything that draws the SWAT team to a location of that person's choosing. This prank caller in particular chose the Ubisoft Montreal offices, which is quite lame. Surely that wasn't a good time for the people in the offices, having the SWAT team pointing guns at them and telling them to put their hands in the air or get on their stomach or whatever the procedure is there. But again, thankfully, it was not a hostage situation that was originally reported and nobody was hurt. So that's good news. The prank caller is still at large, and I'm sure they're trying to hunt him down. I think I'm going to leave the story there. I mean, I'm not going to be, following that too much. It sounds like it's been resolved for the most part. If there is any update to that story, I'll be sure to let you all know. But I will say this again, totally doing my best to avoid reporting any misinformation. It's shocking the amount of people, and when I say people, I mean like legit verified blue checkmark folks on Twitter in the industry that were very irresponsibly using the term, oh, there's a hostage situation happening at Ubisoft, before that was even confirmed by anybody. So, just let it be known that your favorite dirty ass Mexican has more journalistic integrity than actual people that are supposed to be doing that responsibly for a living. And with that little update out of the way, we can finally start the show. Once again, here on the DualShock Graveyard Podcast, we talk about the latest in gaming, the latest in horror. We talk about horror movies, we talk about horror games. And I use the term we because this isn't just my podcast. This is also your podcast too. In fact, I like to pride myself as somebody who is very accessible, very easy to reach whenever somebody just wants to have a conversation or just, leave me a nice little remark or a nice little comment on the show. Whether it be good or bad, I can handle criticism as well. And with that spirit, I'd like to congratulate the winner of last week's $10 PSN code giveaway. Last week, I asked, which game would you like to see remade from the bottom up? Given the Demon Souls treatment, given the Shadow of the Colossus treatment, given the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro Reignited Trilogy treatment, and a gentleman by the name of, where's your name, man? I have it written here somewhere. Where the fuck are you? Here we go. A gentleman by the name of @Jeter3C. He got there first on Instagram and left me the following: I want the original Zone of the Enders to be remade. Thanks. And that question, especially since the goal is to be the first person to give the answer, it doesn't really leave enough time to, send a thought out, hey, I like your show, thank you for the opportunity. No, you have to just get your answer out of the way. So that makes sense. As to why his message sounded so abrupt. But he gave an answer and he was the first one to do so. So congratulations to Mr. Jeter3C. I have sent you your PSN code. Please enjoy. And if you would like to be a potential winner of any other future sweepstakes that I might have in the future, get your ass to Twitter and get your ass to Instagram and add me at both of them at ambient_Jules. It will be typed out in the episode description. Once again, that's ambient_Jules. Those two accounts are for now, the official communication hubs of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. That is where you can DM me about anything. Send me feedback, send me criticisms, or even just to say hey and start a conversation about whatever subject matter that we talk about on the episode, or really about anything. I would love to get to know my listenership more, so please do so. And with those exciting giveaways all done, let's get into what we start every single episode with: what I've been watching and what I've been playing this week. Now, unfortunately, and I don't have any numbers on me. I don't have any, expertise on what's going on out there as far as quarantine goes. But what I do know is that I don't know if other states out there use the color system. Here in California, we have a we have the color system. Uh, Purple being bad. Um, Goes down to orange. Wait, no, purple, red, orange, yellow. And California, for a while there, we were getting out of most counties were getting out of the purple. In fact, most counties, I'm pretty sure, we're out of the red too. But as of late, along with the rest of the country, it's getting kind of wacky out there again. And I know it's getting wacky because they closed down the indoor dining of the one coffee shop that had um indoor dining that I would frequent, because I like to go to a coffee shop and do some podcast research. That's where I do the majority of my little notebook scribblings here and there that I do for the show. And so imagine how happy I was when they reopened the indoor dining for that place. Now counteract that with how distraught I was when I walked in. In fact, I believe I walked in the day that they reclosed it, because there were people that were waiting in line to get their coffee that had their little laptop bags, their suede briefcases that has their computer equipment, and with nowhere to sit because they had the chairs. This it's like the universal symbol of you can't sit here is when they have the chairs flipped and hung off the tables. So when I saw my usual spot being marked in that way, I was pretty upset. Now there's a Starbucks down the street from that coffee shop that has a pretty neat outdoor area, which I also frequent. But man, it's been getting pretty cold recently. The cold has come back, which I like. I like the cold weather, but it's not the ideal. It's not ideal notebook weather to be sitting out there with coffee scribbling. But being that that is the only place where I can do so comfortably, I'm probably gonna have to go to Walgreens and buy some gloves for that, because I can't do it. I can't do podcast research in my home. It's just not. It's not the ideal spot. It's loud here all the time. It's very difficult to concentrate with the constant shenanigans that happens here at this house. The point that I'm making is that in addition to everything being locked down again, a curfew has also recently been implemented. In fact, it's going to kick off tonight, Saturday night. And regardless how you feel about the actual strategy of a curfew, whether you think it's silly or not that um, you think that a virus just goes away during the day and then at 10 o'clock at night, that's when it just magically reappears again. Regardless of how stupid you think a curfew is, uh, you just got to look at the bright side. You have to be home at 10. And when you get home, that's plenty of time to catch up on some shows or catch up on some TV or some gaming. And that's what I'm going to have a lot of time to do now that these curfews are about to be put in place. This week, however, I was able to catch up on and finish watching Castlevania. That's a show that last week I sung my praises on. I was in the middle of season 2 when I was talking about it last week. This week, I have completed it and can happily say that season 3 was a massive disappointment for the most part, with the exception of the last 2 episodes. And listen, if I talk about a show on this podcast, like in the what I've been watching / what I've been playing segment of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast, I'll always do my best to make sure that it's spoiler free. And just out of courtesy, I just figured if I'm going to talk about a show and give my thoughts on it, it's going to be in a very recommendatory fashion, so that anybody out there that sounds intrigued by my recommendation will give the show a shot. So just FYI, this segment and every single segment of every episode will be spoiler free. And again, the latest episode or the latest season of Castlevania season 3 was kind of a letdown. I thought season 1 was fantastic. Season 2 was also pretty great, but season 3, it just introduced too many uninteresting side characters and split the subplots out everywhere. to not only some of them were, or most of them rather, were quite uninteresting, but it was hard to determine like what they had to do with each other. But that changed dramatically in the last two episodes. The last two episodes, it's funny how every complaint that I have was in a comical fashion too. It just comically fixed themselves to where all of the characters that I thought were uninteresting were just sidelined, and the show, the last two episodes, brilliantly put together or brought together every subplot, and it all just came together very beautifully. I think that doesn't excuse how slow paced and how let down I was with the first 8 episodes, but I'm happy that the last two just very quickly brought everything together and just concluded in a very, very fun final 2 episodes. But regardless, Castlevania, the show itself, if you have a Netflix subscription, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely worth a watch. The finale, which I also enjoyed, it set up or attempted to set up the next season, but there's a couple subplots that look intriguing that I'll be on the lookout for. Especially one character in particular just took a dive to some evil shit, which is very intriguing because he was previously a good I don't know if a good character is what is the word I should use, but he was definitely he was on the right side. But seeing a good character have a very convincing turn that justifiably makes him evil, that's always a very interesting character dynamic that I like. And in true Netflix fashion, I'll probably wait 2 years for the next season, so I'll wait. And that's it for Castlevania. Today, actually, I also caught up on this week's episode of The Mandalorian. Oh boy, The Mandalorian. Listen, I think it's a very enjoyable show. The production value is outstanding. I mean, the amount of effort that goes into every episode, the effects. I mean, it's the movies. I mean, there's no other TV show that I can say that it has that amount of quality that feels like a movie. I mean, those space battles, the dogfights, all of it is. It's a Star Wars movie, like. But I got to tell you, man, it's comical how every single episode has the same exact format. And the first couple times, okay, sure, but it's every single episode at this point now. Mandalorian needs something. He asks somebody for it, and that person will do it in exchange for a favor. It's always a favor. It's always a favor in exchange of what he needs. That's every single episode of this season. First episode, Timothy Oliphant needed a favor to fight that desert worm in exchange for the Mandalorian armor that he had. The following episode, Mando needed to find other Mandalorians, and the Frog Lady's husband had the information, but in exchange, she needed a ride to go to him. The following episode, he finds the other Mandalorians, but the other Mandalorians need a favor in exchange of finding, I'm explaining this and I'm just now realizing how much I'm spoiling right after I said that I wasn't going to spoil any of the shows that I talk about. So I'm going to stop right there. But you get my point. The Favor-lorian. That's what the show should be called. Not the Mandalorian. And listen, it doesn't make for a bad show. I mean, it's a very entertaining show, but I mean, come on. It's painstakingly similar how each episode has the same exact structure and plot points, but I don't hate it. It's just it sticks out a lot. But I don't know if I'm ready to say that that's a bad thing though. I'll keep watching. This episode in particular was actually quite great. And finally, I'm still watching my favorite show, my bright spot. God damn it, I love Friends. Friends. I'm watching Friends. I'm watching it from beginning to end for the first time, for those that don't know. And I'm loving every minute of it. Friends was one of those shows where back in the day where I was a channel flipper, back when we had cable and we did that. We flipped through channels, which I don't imagine many people do anymore. Friends and, shows like Friends, Seinfeld, Full House, shows that were on all the time. They wouldn't air them chronologically. They would air them, just in random spots. So watching it in bits and pieces that way, I was spoiled to a lot of a lot of major plot points of the show. For example, I knew that, Ross and Rachel were going to get together and break up. I knew that Ross was eventually going to marry some British broad. What else was I? I knew Phoebe was gonna have triplets at some point, and I'm very excited because I'm finally at a part where all of that happened. All of that happened much sooner than I thought it would, so I didn't have to wait until season 9 or whatever for that to finally happen. And I'm happy to announce that I'm finally at a spot where from here on out, from where I'm at, which is the middle of season 5, everything will be fresh and nothing else has been spoiled. So I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy to see the rest of the show fresh, unaware of what's going to happen. So that's very cool. In fact, again, just like I said last week, I'm going to finish up this episode, edit it, put it out, and get right back in front of my TV and watch some more Friends. As far as what I've been watching, that about covers it. As far as what I've been playing, that's a whole nother story. I've been playing nothing new. I'm still progressing on Far Cry 3, trying to get that platinum trophy. And I've decided that in addition to Far Cry 3, I'm going to throw in Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, one of my childhood games on there as well. I'm going to try to get the platinum trophy on that. I'm playing the version that was released with the Reignited trilogy, the version that was remastered from the ground up. I just figured, the game, I've been going back to games that I've mastered and games that I love, that I've completed multiple times, but may as well just go back and just complete them officially and get that platinum trophy. So that's what I've been doing. Far Cry 3 and Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. Although I must say there is a major caveat and something that's been dampening my enjoyment of playing these games. And it's simply the fact that the PlayStation 5 exists. The fact that it exists right now and it's just out in the wild. How does that relate? I'll tell you. For those that don't know, the PlayStation 5 has the ability to play all of your PlayStation 4 games, and 99.9% of the time, it runs them at a higher resolution or much smoother frame rates. So I have a PlayStation 4, and it's not a PlayStation 4 Pro, it's just the original 2013 first run janky PlayStation 4, and I'm playing Far Cry 3 and Spyro 2 again. And I'm aware that on the PlayStation 5, it runs Far Cry 3 at a upscaled, obviously not to a native 4K, but at a much higher resolution and running at a smooth 30 frames per second. Meanwhile, I'm playing it at a shitty 1080p, which to be fair isn't shitty. 10 by no means is 1080p, blurry or anything, but it does run extremely choppy, which I don't like. And same with Spyro 2. It runs at a higher, I think it actually runs at 1440p on the PlayStation 5. And again, a smooth 30 frames per second. So it's just the fact that, I'm playing these games, but just knowing that I could just get a PS5 and run these games at a much smoother resolution and smoother frame. It's just something that annoys me. It has to be my OCD that gets triggered just every time. In fact, speaking of what I've been watching, I'll tell you something else I've been watching. I've been watching YouTube videos of all of my games that I have running on PlayStation 5s and just seeing one by one, just seeing how much smoother and how much crisper they look on a PlayStation 5. And it very softly and very gently murders my soul. That's what it does. So that's what I've been playing this week. With a big, sad frown on my face, I've been chugging along and trying to get the platinum trophy on Far Cry 3 and Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. I've been going back and forth playing those. Once again, the unnecessary reminder that I also got the platinum trophy for Tekken 7 a couple weeks ago. Again, unnecessary. But there you go. I just wanted to throw that in too. Oh, and before I forget, last night, I started watching Child's Play. Child's Play is my all-time favorite horror franchise ever. I love the Chucky movies. I love Chucky. The original Child's Play is free at the time of recording this. It is free on YouTube. For those of you that didn't know, an all-time classic. I didn't get too far into it before I fell asleep, but it is there. I'll probably finish it at some point. Why I don't own it on Vudu is another reason. I'll probably end up put it on my wish list and buy it when it goes on sale. But there you go. Child's Play is free on YouTube for those that are interested. And speaking of the Child's Play franchise, here at the DualShock Graveyard Podcast, we are also keeping our eye out on the Child's Play TV series that is going to come out in 2021, this coming year. For those that don't know, there is a TV series of the Child's Play franchise premiering on Sci-Fi and USA at some point in 2021. And the gang is back. They got Brad Dourif back as the voice of Chucky. And I don't have any information in front of me, but there is a trailer out, or a teaser trailer rather, of the show. So for those that are interested, or those that need to be reminded, there is a Child's Play TV series to look forward to, which is very exciting. I'm actually quite excited. Now, it's not just the voice of Chucky, but everybody that was behind the films is back for this series. So Don Mancini, the writer of the original, he is actually showrunning. He's the showrunner for this upcoming series, so that's also very exciting. And I'll be keeping everybody posted on any future updates on that. Here's some more exciting news that broke this week. Scream 5 wraps filming, officially titled Scream. Wow. They went that route. The following information comes from Entertainment Weekly. I'm going to read off their article here. It was announced Wednesday that the fifth Scream movie will also be called Scream. Kevin Williamson, who wrote the original film, revealed the news on social media in a series of posts. This follows the successful example of director David Gordon Green's 2018 relaunch of the Halloween series, simply titled Halloween, which I still haven't seen, by the way. No longer reading the article, obviously. I haven't seen the recent Halloween. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and severely do damage to my horror cred. I actually haven't seen one Halloween film. I know. Let's let that sink in for a sec. Let's let that wave of disappointment just come. Let it soak. You know, you hate my guts. And let's get over it now and move on. But yeah, it's just one of those that I just never got around to, and catching up on, Jesus Christ, how many films is it now? Like what, 13, 14 films now? I'll watch the original couple with Jamie Lee Curtis, and then I'll probably go into the latest one. And I do know something that's quite funny. Did you know that the recent Halloween film was written by, or co-written by, Danny McBride of Eastbound and Down fame, most famously known as Kenny Powers? I thought that's pretty great. And apparently it was actually apparently a very well liked film. I haven't seen it myself, but I know somebody that really liked it. And apparently Danny McBride's a hell of a horror writer. So in fact, I'll put that on my list for this week, and I'll report back on next week's episode how I enjoyed that, since curfew is going to give us a lot of extra time to watch movies and play games. I'm scrolling through the article, and man, I'm just blown away at how good the original cast still looks. Courtney Cox looks amazing for her age. Neve Campbell, who played Cindy Prescott, she hasn't aged at all. Holy fuck. David Arquette, he also looks great. In fact, continuing with the article here, the cast of the new Scream includes franchise veterans Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, and Marley Sheldon. I don't know who that is. As well as newbies, Jasmine Savory Brown, Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, and Jack Quaid. Scream is being directed by Matt Belleni-Oplin and Tyler Gillett of the filmmaking group Radio Silence. I don't know what that is. They say the level of respect we have for Craven's work, it's impossible to fully express. But when we read the story that Guy and Jamie put on the page, there was something so undeniably new and also something so undeniably Scream about it, and we just knew that we had to be a part of it. The new Scream is executive produced by original Scream screenwriter, Jesus Christ, Kevin Williamson. Spyglass, and Paramount Pictures will release Scream worldwide on January 14th, 2022. Some of you are probably excited that I was going to say 2021, which would have been great. That would have been a month away, really, but no. That's January 2022. A little bit of a wait, unfortunately, but exciting nonetheless, man. I like Scream. I like the Scream franchise. The opening scene for the original Scream will always, forever be one of my all-time favorite scenes. Drew Barrymore, she knocked it out of the park in that scene. It was, I remember watching it for the first time and just how tense that scene was. Man, I really just need to catch up on my. I just need to buy a whole bunch of films this week. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to buy the Child's Play movies and the Scream movies. Hopefully they're on sale because I'm just going to be dropping a lot of money because again, goddamn curfew, goddamn quarantine. We're going to be spending a lot of time at the home for the next couple months. So might be time to do some rewatching here. The next bit of news is not horror related per se, but it is breaking news. This actually broke today. Wonder Woman 1984 and Pixar's Soul are both releasing on December 25th and will both be streaming. Wonder Woman 1984 will be streaming on HBO Max, while Disney Pixar's Soul will be streaming on Disney Plus. Now, unlike Mulan, which tried to charge some goofy shenanigans on top of your Disney Plus subscription, Soul will not be going that route. It will be included for free as part of your Disney Plus subscription, as will Wonder Woman 1984. Wonder Woman 1984, as well as premiering on HBO Max, will also be playing in theaters as well. If Jesus Christ, if movie theaters are even open by then. I know the movie theater that I worked at recently has closed, was open for a little bit, and then just closed back down. So sucks to suck. But that's pretty cool. That's two films that have been widely anticipated. I've myself have been looking forward to Wonder Woman 1984. So Christmas Day, that will be the day that Wonder Woman 1984 and Pixar's Soul will be premiering on HBO Max and Disney Plus, respectively. So that's cool. As far as movies that have been just in the tank and have been just waiting to be released that got delayed because of COVID, the top three for me, or the top two rather, A Quiet Place Part 2. I'm waiting for that shit. In fact, I know somebody that's even more anticipated who has been waiting for this movie for so long, and that movie was supposed to premiere in March of 25th. And I know this because every time I pass through San Francisco, they still have the billboard for A Quiet Place Part 2. I mean, it's goddamn November, and it still has the billboard that says March 25th as the release date. And everything locked down the week before it was going to come out. So my buddy was pretty upset about that, and I believe that's gotten delayed into next year. So that's one that I've been looking forward to. But the number one film, I have to say, the number one movie that I am looking forward to right now that has been delayed easily, goddamn James Bond. You gotta understand, dude. I love James Bond. I love Bond films, man. I love Bond films. And this one in particular, I was looking forward to. I love Daniel Craig as James Bond. I think he's a fantastic Bond. Second best Bond. Obviously, you can't front on Sean Connery, who, speaking of Sean Connery, he passed away recently, a couple weeks ago, actually. So rest in peace, Sean Connery. A lot of Bond, and it's insane that we're talking about James Bond right now because today, more James Bond news broke, video game related. Hitman developer IO Interactive developing an original 007 James Bond title. It's very early in production, currently titled Project 007, likely years away, since the game isn't even titled, obviously. And allow me to read from the website here. It reads, it's Bond, James Bond. Project 007 working title is a brand new James Bond video game to be developed and published by IO Interactive, makers of the acclaimed Hitman trilogy. Featuring a wholly original Bond story, players will step into the shoes of the world's favorite secret agent to earn their 00 status in the very first James Bond origin story. IO Interactive is currently recruiting elite talent from around the world to join the team that will build out this exciting and unique gaming title. Wow, that's quite exciting. I mean, talk about the perfect developer for this too. I mean, I'm excited for a new Bond game, but just knowing that the developers behind Hitman will be doing it, I mean, that's a match made in heaven. I've actually not played any of the recent Hitman games, but just the style of it, I've seen it run, I've seen it played, and it just screams, secret agent shenanigans. I mean, Agent 47. I mean, that's the protagonist for the Hitman series. I think they're the perfect developer for that. I mean, that's their wheelhouse right there. And again, the game is very early in development, so we'll have to wait many years for that. But I can tell you already, man, this game instantly shot up to among my most anticipated titles. In fact, I'm trying to think, what are my top 5? If I had to tell you my top 5 most anticipated games right now, just period, not this year, just period. Easy. Number 1, easy. God of War Ragnarok, obviously. Followed by Far Cry 6. Very much looking forward to Far Cry 6. What else? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. What else is coming out? What's coming out next year? Ooh. Hogwarts Legacy, the goddamn Harry Potter RPG that I've been wanting since I've started playing video games. That's definitely on there. Gran Turismo 7. I love Gran Turismo. I love the Gran Turismo games. I love racing simulators, so Gran Turismo 7 is definitely on there as well. And finally, yeah, this newly announced James Bond game. There's my 5. My 5 most anticipated titles are that. By the way, it's always a good time when I'm talking about horror movies that I get to sneak in some gaming news right there. Even though the films that I were talking about at the end there weren't necessarily horror, we always got to talk about the breaking news when it is pretty breaking that goddamn Wonder Woman and Soul have a release date and they will be streaming. And I just brought up James Bond, and yeah, speaking of Bond, god damn it, dude, they just announced that the Hitman developers are making a brand new James Bond game. That's fucking awesome. But with all that horror goodness and movie goodness out of the way, I think it's finally time to officially segue our way onto the video game segment of the show, as if we haven't already. Jesus Christ, James Bond. And the way we do that is the weekly releases. The weekly releases, as we know, is just a quick rundown of all the games that are coming out this week. I do not talk about every single video game that comes out this week because, every week many games come out. Many small, tiny, I don't want to use insignificant. That would be a very rude word. Every single game, there's a developer behind them who works tirelessly. However, it is true that if we talked about every single game, this would be a very, very long segment, and I try to whittle it down to every game that's of substance that I think is worth talking about. And I say this every single week. If there is a game that I might miss because in my opinion, for that week, it's not a game that I think is worth talking about or is of substance, that's where the audience comes in and sends me a DM telling me, hey, dude, I think you should be talking about this game. This game actually looks pretty cool. I will happily talk about it the week after. And since I've started this show 2 years ago, since I've started this podcast, not one person has included a game in the weekly releases. It goes to show that keeping that giant list whittled down to the games of substance is one good way of doing it. However, there are other gaming podcasts out there that, they do similar segments where they list the entire list of games that come out that week. I'll leave that to them, especially with the other subject matter that we talk about, the horror stuff. I just think it's a good idea to just keep it basic, just to the most important games. So let's get to this week's weekly releases. Obviously, we're coming off the launch of both next gen consoles last week. This week we've got on the 20th, which is today, Friday release, we've got Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. For those of this is gonna be a mouthful. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity is a game for the Nintendo Switch It's a spin-off of the Dynasty Warriors franchise. It's a Legend of Zelda spin-off of the Dynasty Warriors franchise. It's a follow-up to Hyrule Warriors. However, this follow-up to Hyrule Warriors is also a prequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Good, because there's that. Also releasing today, Katamari Damacy Reroll. I've never played a Katamari Damacy game, but I'm familiar with it. It was a very popular franchise, especially in Japan. It's you play a character, you play this little you play a figure, and he pushes a ball around, and this ball sticks to everything that it touches. So you just grow this ball, you push it through this very tiny city, and you just grow this ball into as giant as you can make it. Apparently, I believe that's the gameplay loop. I don't know if this is a new game or if this is a remaster of an old game, but Katamari Damacy for the PS4. There you go. If you're a fan of the games back during the PS2 days, there you go. Katamari Damacy Reroll that launches today on the PS4, and I'm not too sure where else. Also this week, Mortal Kombat 11. Now, this is a patch for Mortal Kombat 11, which was released in 2019, I want to say. Actually, no, I think it was released this week. It was released April of this year, I believe. And this is the patch that includes Combat Pack number 2, which includes new characters Rambo, Melina, and Rain. And the collection itself, if you're buying it fresh, is just a culmination of the entire Mortal Kombat 11 packages. You know, both all the characters that have been released, all the expansions, all in one place. And if you have the PS4 version, you get the PlayStation 5 version free of charge because it is a free upgrade. And the free upgrade upgrades it to the PlayStation 5 version, which includes much faster load times, 4K resolutions, which I assume, much faster online play, I would assume. So there's that as well. Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate also out this week. And that'll do it for this week's weekly releases. 3 very solid titles. Again, if I did miss a game that comes out this week that you think is worth mentioning, let me know and I'll gladly listen. I'm desperate at this point to have somebody bring up a game because that is one. So we've had people participate in the PSN gift card giveaways. We've done that twice, and immediately both people have claimed those $10, but no one has ever put input into the weekly releases. So let's just let's keep it rolling, I guess. Let's talk about the latest and greatest going on in the gaming industry right now. And this first story is coming off the weekly releases because it does relate to some release dates and release windows for some very anticipated PlayStation 5 games. Here's one. Release window for multiple first-party games revealed through a YouTube video. Very quickly, a PlayStation 5 promo video was released by Sony, and in that video, it revealed the release video of various titles. Just really quick. According to the video, Gran Turismo 7, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Returnal are set to launch in the first half of 2021. Meanwhile, Horizon Forbidden West is expecting during the second half. The recently announced God of War Ragnarok, which is confirmed for 2021, was not featured in the video, but still expected to release next year. So that's cool. A brief little update on various titles. I myself very excited for Gran Turismo 7 coming out in the first half of next year. Very cool. And this next story, I want to preface this by saying that, God damn it, I brought this conversation out into the ether. Episode 13, last week's episode of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast, I was talking about how I was surprised that nobody was talking about the possibility that God of War Ragnarok and the possibility that it's most likely probably going to be a cross-platform game, meaning that it's going to release on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4. And I predicted so. Like, that was a prediction, and just, voicing my confusion that nobody was talking about this possibility. We're all excited that God of War Ragnarok is coming out next year, but just on top of the fact that Horizon 2, Forbidden West is also coming out for the PlayStation 4, and there have been various other PS5 titles that ended up being cross-platform. That Sackboy game being one of them. I put out the prediction that God of War Ragnarok, just given the fact that Sony confirmed that they want to continue to support the PlayStation 4 for the next 3 years, that's a quote. I just throw out the prediction that I think that God of War Ragnarok is going to be a cross-platform game and that it's going to be a shitstorm when that gets announced. I think Sony knows it and they're preparing for it. That's why they haven't announced it themselves. I think otherwise they would have just confirmed that it's coming out for only the PlayStation 5, which brings us to 1 week later. After I put that episode out, after that episode released out into the earth, that is when multiple articles, not just articles, but Jim Ryan, the CEO of PlayStation himself, actually came out in an interview and gave some remarks regarding that very question. All right, check this out. I'm reading off of PlayStation Lifestyle's article on the topic. Sony's Jim Ryan won't confirm whether God of War Ragnarok is cross-gen or not. Since Sony confirmed that Guerrilla Games' Horizon Forbidden West will also launch on the PlayStation 4 as well as PlayStation 5, fans have been left to wonder what other big-name releases are getting the cross-gen treatment. Insomniac Games recently announced that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is indeed only a PlayStation 5 exclusive. But what about Kratos and Atreus' next adventure, which seems to bear the tentative title God of War Ragnarok? During a recent interview with The Telegraph, as relayed by Twitter user Nibble, Ryan fielded several questions about the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 brand. However, one question he refused to give a direct answer to concerns one of the platform's most anticipated titles, the next God of War entry. When asked, will the new adventure release exclusively to PlayStation or also make its way to PlayStation 4, Jim Ryan simply responded by saying, "Sorry, I've got nothing to say about that today." Of course you don't, Jim Ryan. Of course you have nothing to say on that front because you know what the answer is, man. You know that it is coming to the PS4. You're not ready to drop that bombshell yet. You're not ready to face the wrath of releasing such news. Again, it's my prediction that it will. I was about to say I hope I'm wrong, but at the same time, listen, I understand why people would be upset if God of War Ragnarok also released on the PlayStation 4. There's that whole, the PlayStation 4 is going to hold back the PlayStation 5. They're going to, I get that. But you got to understand, it's not 2013 anymore. That was the case during the transition between last gen and the current gen. But in a generation where my shitty 2013 PlayStation 4 can very comfortably run games like, Red Dead Redemption 2, a very graphically demanding game without much issue, I'm pretty sure we're not going to have much of a next gen, like cross-gen problems like that. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a cross-gen game, a title which I'm actually shocked that I haven't even started yet. I think it's because it's so tightly connected to PlayStation 5's launch. I just forgot that it's out for the PlayStation 4 as well, and it's out now. I will probably fix that this week, but I don't think that a PlayStation 4 version of God of War Ragnarok is going to hold back God of War 5. So as far as that, I don't think it's going to matter that much, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, and I'm assuming that there's a reason for that. And it is going to cause a lot of headlines if it does come out that it is cross-gen. And I'm just saying, prepare for that. Prepare for that shitstorm. But, just keep a level head and do some thinking. And understand that it's not going to be that big of a deal. But before I move on to the next topic, again, credit to me. Credit to me and only me for bringing this conversation out into the ether. Because, again, it wasn't until episode 13 that the articles were coming out. And Jim Ryan put out the interview. The CEO of PlayStation listens to the DualShock. Well, actually, no. He was asked that question. The person that asked Jim Ryan the question listens to the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. So, shout outs to you, sir. Here's one. Immortals Phoenix Rising's post-launch context. Jesus, oh my God, that was horrible. I'm not even gonna edit that out. Let's just try that again. Immortals Phoenix Rising's post-launch content has been revealed. My goodness. So Ubisoft's upcoming Immortals Phoenix Rising is a game that I am very excited for. I believe it is going to be the game that closes out this year for me. I think it comes down to Spider-Man and Immortals. I think those are the last two games that I'll be playing. Every other game, like Cyberpunk, and every other game that will be added to my backlog, I'm waiting for PlayStation 5. But I'm not going to rob myself of Immortals. That's one that I'm pretty content with playing the PlayStation 4 version of. For those that don't know, Immortals Phoenix Rising is it's like Zelda Breath of the Wild, but set in Greek mythology, which, you know, I love Greek mythology. It's right up my alley. And it's in the news this week because its post-launch content has been revealed in the form of a trailer. The post-launch content includes 3 DLC. Sorry. The season. It includes the season pass, which includes 3 additional bonus chapters. One of them is a continuation of the story. The second one is very interesting. Now, the second one is a expansion that takes place outside of the game setting and actually takes place in an island centered around Chinese mythology. That's pretty damn cool. That's very surprising. Just an entire different setting, an entire different mythology in the same game. That's pretty cool. And the third chapter is another chapter set in back in the original setting, which is cool. But another reason why I wanted to talk about this is because a lot of people tend to have an issue with games that aren't released yet already advertising their post-launch content. And I gotta say, I kind of agree with the outrage. It does look like when a game comes out and already starts showing off the content that they're going to start offering after the game comes out, for sale as part of its, season pass or payable downloadable content. Before the game comes out, it just comes off looking like content that could have been put in the game. I think showing it off before the game comes out is the wrong move. Listen, I have no problem with post-launch content or DLC'd or, expansions or anything like that. I just think the best way to go about it is premiere that content after the game comes out. Because here's what you do when you announce it before the game comes out. Since the game's not out, we don't know the content that's in the game. So when you show this quote unquote brand new content, which isn't really new because the entire game is new because it's not out yet, it just, again, it looks like content that is part of the main game. When you release the game and, let the players marinate on it, let them play it, let them finish it, let them beat it, let them platinum it, whatever. And then in like 2 months after the game has been released, if you wait until then to release, the trailer that has all that season pass content, then it looks like new content. Then it's like, holy shit, I beat the whole game, I platinumed it, and now there's new content for me to play. That's cool. I think that's the way to do it. I don't understand the strategy behind announcing and unveiling all the season pass content before the game comes out. Every single game does it. So apparently there is a strategy that I don't understand. Perhaps someone can help me understand, but I just feel like the better strategy is waiting until a couple months after the game comes out to finally unveil that post-launch content. I think it just comes out looking like new content because that's what it is. It's new content that isn't part of the main game. But then again, what do I know? I'm just a dirty ass Mexican with no PlayStation 5, so fuck me, right? And finally, the last thing that we're going to cover today before we put a bow on episode 14 of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast is the Game Awards. The nominees have been released today of the Game Awards. Of course, it's December. It's that time of year again, the Game Awards. I believe premieres on December 10th, and the nominees have been released. So we are going to briefly take a quick look at the nominees and give my thoughts on each. And would you look at that? The website has crashed. Perfect. That is awesome. Bravo, Jeff. Bravo, Jeff Keighley. Um, Give me a sec. And through the power of podcast editing, we just went forward in time 10 minutes to me rebooting my computer because Jeff Keighley's Game Award website froze my whole damn computer. But we're not going to talk about that. I've got the nominees right in front of me now. Again, I'm just going to go through the nominees real quick and just give my opinion on each. I think. I will say this though. I'm not going to waste too much time going through all the esports shenanigans. I'm just not. I don't follow esports. I don't know anything about esports. Um, I'm looking at one right here. Here are the nominees for best esports team. We've got Dom Wom Gaming, uh, their League of Legends team. That's just a bunch of teams. And if I had to pick one, I choose the one that looks like BTS. We've got a group of Korean kids called Dom Won Gaming, and I'm gonna vote for them. You can sign up and vote, by the way. For those that are interested. Let's see. Best esports host. I don't know shit about shit. Best esports event. Again, I don't know who the players are, and they expect me to know who the coach is. There's another category called Best Esports Coach. Dude, no. Best esports athlete. Wow, the disrespect. They put quotes around athlete. I'm just kidding. They didn't put quotes on athlete. I put quotes on athlete. But that's a whole nother conversation we should have. So we've got the nominees for Best Debut Game. Best Debut Game. For the best debut game created by a new independent studio, we've got Phobia Game Studios' Carry On, Cold Symmetry's Mortal Shell, Notting Head Games' Raji and Ancient Epic, Polygon Treehouse's Roki, and Kinetic Games' Plasmophobia. I have heard of absolutely none of these games. Although that's a me thing. Obviously, I'm sure all of these games have very, solid fan bases. I've just fallen a little behind on the indie game circle. I just kind of fallen out. Let's see, scrolling through here. Best multiplayer game. The nominees are Animal Crossing: New Horizon, Among Us, Call of Duty Warzone, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, and Valorant. Just to add a bit of variety, I'm just going to go ahead and vote for Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. That's a very, very fun game that I unfortunately still have not gotten a trophy for yet. And if you go to the official Game Awards website, they have the entire list of nominees and categories that you can vote for. I'm just scrolling through here. I'm skipping through some of the basic ones. You can look at those on your own time if you're so willing. Again, you can vote for your favorites. Here's a category: Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. We've got a game called If Found, Dream Feels, If Found, Cardboard Computers, Kentucky Route Zero TV edition, Thunder Lotus Games, Spiritfarer, Don't Nod Entertainment's Tell Me Why, and Paint Bucket Games, Through the Darkest of Times. Again, a group of games that I have never heard of. But again, that's through my own fault. Although, let me say this. I'm just reading this category again, Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. A game that I think should be on this is easy. Animal Crossing. Easily. Listen, I don't know about, the pro-social message stuff, but as far as impact, easily. Easily Animal Crossing. Are you kidding me? Animal Crossing is a game that saved people's lives. That's the game that came out right in the beginning of the pandemic, and it got people through lots of hard times. As far as like timing goes, I can't think of a game that came out at a better time. That game sold extremely well, moved so many Nintendo Switches, and got people through very difficult times. So I'm actually kind of shocked that that wasn't considered. Uh, Again, perhaps it is because it has no like actual, quote unquote social impact, but it had social impact. Let me turn that around. It had absolutely had social impact. It saved people's lives. Animal Crossing came out. I mean, I don't want to, sound like a broken record, but that's just something like I'm reading through this list of like games I've never heard about a category about, social impact. And Jesus Christ, Animal Crossing easily. Um, Whether it be this year or any other time in the future, I just hope that people recognize how crazy Animal Crossing's impact was, as far as when it came out this year and what people were going through. On that front, Animal Crossing will always forever be legendary. But we're gonna skip right to the top and just go to the cream of the crop, as they say, Game of the Year. The nominees for this year's Game of the Year, we've got Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2. Very, very interesting lineup there. The only game that I played out of all of these were The Last of Us Part 2. I had my time with it. I beat it. I think it's a very great game. It had some of the best visuals, best graphics ever. The narrative, I was not a fan of. I think whatever Neil Druckmann's writing, whatever impact they thought it was going to have, it did not have the intended effect on me. But that, that's just me. As far as the other games, I have not played them. Ghost of Tsushima, that's a game that I have not played, that I'm actually waiting for the PlayStation 5 because, again, it is out for the PS4, but on the PlayStation 5, it will be running at native 4K, running at a full 60 frames per second. So, I mean, come on. I can't play it on the PS4 knowing that that version is out. And same with Doom Eternal, and same with Final Fantasy. And Hades, it's actually Hades is a surprising one. That's actually a game that I've been wanting to play. It's a tiny little indie game from the developers of they made Transistor and Bastion, and I really really liked Transistor. I haven't finished it, but I remember having a really good time with Transistor. And Hades, I mean, obviously Greek mythology, it's right up my alley. I would happily play this game, but alas, it is on the PC and the Switch, two platforms that I do not have. But as far as who I think should win, I'm going to be honest, I have no strong opinions on who I think should win. However, I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be really upset if the likely game gets selected. And I think the likely game is going to be The Last of Us Part 2. And it's going to create quite the shitstorm. So as far as Game of the Year, I'm going to be watching the Game Awards live, sitting back with my popcorn, and just sit back and watch the gaming world burn when what I predict comes true. And I predict that The Last of Us Part 2 will win, and there's going to be a major, major shitstorm because there's a lot of people who really did not like the way The Last of Us Part 2 went. And listen, I almost consider myself in that front again. I don't hate The Last of Us Part 2. I just said it was a very good game, but there are people that hate very, what's the word? Misguided way of thinking. Just because you hated how the story, it's automatically a very horrible game. That's furthest from the truth. I mean, I also did not like how the story turned out, but I mean, the gameplay was fantastic, very tense. The graphics are some of the best I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm actually waiting for the PlayStation 5 version, once again, so I can get the platinum to that because I actually really enjoyed playing it. But again, some people didn't like the story, so therefore the entire game sucks. And that's obviously not the way a lot of the games media sees it. And the games media has their finger on the lever ultimately. You can vote, but that's the voting process between in the Game Awards. They balance between the user votes and like the Oscars, there's like a panel of members of the game media that ultimately have their fingers on the scale. And given how great The Last of Us Part 2 reviewed, I think they're going to give that fucker the title. I think The Last of Us Part 2 is going to win Game of the Year, and people are going to lose their minds. And I'll be keeping my mouth shut and eating my popcorn and watch the internet explode safely from a distance. And that's what I'll be doing. And listen, with that, I'm going to go ahead and put a close on this episode. I want to thank each and every one of you on a very personal and individual level for taking time out of your night or day or whenever you choose to listen to this to listen. And once again, add me on social media, add me on Twitter and Instagram. That's at ambient_Jules. And I will catch you guys next Wednesday at midnight. Again, I'm aiming for that time slot to be the official launch of every episode of the DualShock Graveyard Podcast. I hope you guys hold me to that. And again, I'll catch you guys next week. Take care and be safe. And always remember, DualShock is a product of Sony.